Coming to you from the Hudson Media Group studio, this is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist. Top 50 Latino was voted on by the Latino Spirit online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative, and without a doubt, I'll continue to be the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media, because my level of honesty is necessary in this era of deception. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe. Hope you're having a wonderful week, folks. Again, as we're wrapping up January shortly, hopefully some warm weather is on the horizon, as it's been a bitterly cold winter thus far. But you know what? It's always hot in here because we're always talking politics. Of course, there's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've talked about it repeatedly, not just on this program, but my other media programs as well, as being sort of the hero that you need right now in Garden State journalism. And I've been talking about this at length, about the disservice that the establishment media continues to do to all of you on a daily basis. Now, a lot of people might say, well, Fernando, listen, you're all in the struggle together, and why bring down your peers when maybe they won't do it to you? Well, that's just not true. It's a cutthroat business. It's an ocean full of sharks. We're all looking for views, clicks, traffic, engagement, and all the metrics that really is what this business is all about. But one of the things I will do is I'll give credit when it's necessary, and when journalists are doing a good job here in the state of New Jersey, I'll applaud them. But when they're doing you a disservice, and they've been doing it for decades, I just have to call it out, because it's unfair to you, the residents of New Jersey, homeowners, taxpayers, property owners, right? People that just want to send their kids to school, they want to be able to afford their groceries, be able to fill up their gas tanks during this awful economy. And of course, focus on real issues like property taxes, not pronouns, and not acquiescing to woke nonsense, or even coddling the LGBTQ plus minus 1, 2, 3, whatever community, whatever the acronym is, this week, because that's just not what most New Jersey residents are thinking about on a daily basis. And one of the residents that, that really stand out for me, he's a journalist, and he's probably one of the worst ones currently in the Garden State. And he's a guy that has been very sanctimonious over the years with his liberal bias. But now more than ever, folks, it's becoming not even transparent. It's becoming downright cringy. And he is Tom Moran. Now, let me just give you some context here about sort of the latest outrage by Tom Moran when it comes to the Emperor, Governor Phil Murphy, and his wife, the Queen, the First Lady, Tammy Murphy. Now, let me just take you back in time here. Both in 2017 and in 2021, Tom Moran reluctantly, right, as he likes to phrase it in the columns, endorsed Phil Murphy for governor. Let me just sort of give you a tidbit here of back in, 2017. All right. So back in 2017, he writes, Phil Murphy for governor, but New Jersey deserves so much better. Sort of like his easy way out of saying, well, I don't really like anybody, but maybe I'll just endorse somebody. Right. So, of course, Tommy decides to start the editorial by someday, somewhere over the rainbow, New Jersey voters will have a choice between two impressive candidates for governor, but not this year. Our choice is Democrat Phil Murphy by default. He has profound weaknesses, no kidding, and we all knew that back in 2017 as we know it now. Starting with his lack of political experience and his ferocious loyalty to the public worker unions, the same two weaknesses that sank former governor Jon Corzine, thankfully only a one-term governor. But Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno, the Republican candidate, is the worst nominee of either major party to come along in decades. That's just not true. You just referenced Jon Corzine, and folks, I think we can all recall, at least in my adult life, there was no worse of a governor in the Garden State in its history than Johnny Dollars, Jon Corzine. I mean, Jim Florio's up there, Christine Todd Whitman's up there, but without doubt, folks, it's Johnny Dollars. Jon Corzine definitely takes the crown. So to sort of be just blatantly disingenuous about Kim Guadagno, I think was blatantly unfair, but more on that later. Her knowledge of the issues is paper thin, which isn't true. She's failed utterly to separate herself from the disastrous legacy of Governor Chris Christie, which it was a disaster, but again, she's the lieutenant governor. She worked on a lot of issues that not necessarily correlated with Governor Chris Christie. And she surrendered her integrity with dishonest attacks on her opponent designed to inflame bigotry against immigrants. Well, folks, this all goes back to Phil Murphy, then candidate Phil Murphy in 2017, talking about if he's elected, he wants to make New Jersey a sanctuary state. Well, fast forward 7 years later, yeah, how's that working out for you, Phil? And for the rest of the far left in New Jersey that lives to coddle illegals, that feels that, hey, let's give money to illegals, let's give them driver's licenses, let's overcrowd our schools, let's exhaust our social services, let's downgrade the value of real estate because, of course, the illegals crowding into multiple homes at one time. So 7 years later, folks, yeah, it wasn't an attack on immigrants, it was an attack on illegal immigrants and the impact that they have on our communities. If you don't believe me, just ask the mayor of Secaucus, and ask the mayor of Edison. I'm sure both mayors will have a lot to say. If you don't believe me, try calling out to the offices of Mayor Ganelli and Mayor Joshin in Edison, because I'm sure they'll have a plethora of things to say about illegals and the burden that they're causing, not just in New Jersey, but the country itself. Right? I'm not going to bore you with the rest of this nonsensical editorial from Tom Moran, but let's move on to 2021. So, of course, Tommy decides to go vote for Murphy by default once again. It's like, Tom Moran reminds me of that guy that goes to a bar and sees nothing but fives, right? And we've all seen them, right? Like a girl that's a five and she's pretty average looking, if not maybe below average. And you kind of feel like, oh, I don't know, maybe I just, I've been bored, haven't talked to a chick in a while. Let me just go talk to her for the sake of talking to her. No, Tom, have some standards, right? Like you should be aiming for 7, 8s, or something like that, okay? I wouldn't know. I don't struggle. All I date is 10s, and that's obvious if you look at my social media. But of course, to sort of think about Tom Moran dating anything above a 5 is probably, that's asking a lot of Tommy. But in any event, that's sort of the mindset that Tom Moran permeates, right? Oh, well, I don't know. I guess I'll just endorse somebody. No, Tom, if you don't really believe in either candidate, how about just sit it out? How about just not endorse anyone? But again, Tom Moran feels the need to show his liberal bias by always endorsing the Democrat, which is fine. I mean, I'm sure there are candidates and colleagues and columnists that will say, well, I'll endorse a Republican. Sure, that's not a problem. But Tom Moran, again, continues to show his liberal bias, as does the Star-Ledger, but continuing to employ a clown like Tom Moran, right? But again, he felt the need to endorse Phil Murphy, again, 4 years later, when we all know that Phil Murphy was an absolute disaster for New Jersey. But this is how he starts that column. Jack Ciarelli, the Republican candidate for governor, says he opposes mandates to wear masks or take COVID-19 vaccines, both measures that have proven effective in saving lives. Well, we've all learned that's not true. Actually, I knew that back in 2021. It seems like maybe Tommy missed that memo, right? Even today, what have we learned from Dr. Fauci testifying in front of Congress? Yes, social distancing didn't work, masks didn't work, and clearly the vaccines didn't work. So all these vaccine mandates and everything else that was invasive and intrusive proved to be non-effective. But don't tell that to Tom Moran, because that would require him to write a retraction and apologize to New Jersey residents for blatantly lying to all of you. But of course, do you expect Tom Moran to have any integrity? That's a big 4-syllable word, and we all know that Tom Moran doesn't have any. More on that later. So he goes on to write, it's hard to believe that Ciarelli, long a reasonable voice in New Jersey politics, really believes in policies that would surely result in more disease and death, which is not true. But throughout this sad campaign, he has been caught in a vice. To win support of Republican voters under the spell of Donald Trump, he took extreme positions during the primary. Now he's stuck with them. On vaccine mandates, Ciarelli is retreating fast, and he was right to do so. But it doesn't stop there. He wants to expand the right to carry concealed guns, which, folks, if you've learned anything about New Jersey, we're seeing burglaries on the rise, we're seeing assaults on the rise, we're seeing carjackings on the rise. But of course, that's too much for Tom Moran to process, just like it is for Phil Murphy and his lapdog, Matt Plotkin, the Attorney General. So while they have 24-hour armed security at their disposal, regular New Jerseyans, yeah, we have to sort of fend for ourselves. So when we're seeing gun permits and applications for them sort of skyrocketing in municipalities all across the state, well, folks, again, that's because people like Phil Murphy and people like Matt Plotkin and the far left in Trenton love to coddle criminality. They love to acquiesce to criminals, right? Didn't we see that? While people couldn't go to the wakes of family members that died during COVID or for any other reason, or to attend weddings, or basic Sunday service at a local church or a synagogue. Yeah, Phil Murphy wasn't a fan of that. He was a fan of walking up and down Linden with BLM supporters and all those derelicts, right, to support basically a fentanyl-ingesting career criminal like George Floyd. But of course, don't tell that to Phil Murphy because, again, he's just being down with the cause. You think Tom Moran spoke out against that? Of course not, because Tom Moran also likes to coddle criminality and likes to acquiesce to criminals. Otherwise, he'd be writing about it, but he's not. More on that later. So, of course, he talks about, but aims to include anyone who feels in danger, suggesting real estate agents as lead examples, for example. Journalists might qualify as well, he says. Where this end is anyone's guess. He also talked about he would repeal key reforms aimed at containing police brutality, saying the public has no right to know when an officer is accused of misconduct, even when the officer is punished. That's not true. We've seen accountability by the Department of Law and Public Safety and the Department of the State Police, as well as local police departments. He supports abortion rights within tighter limits, but would inexplicably cut funding for Planned Parenthood. Well, that's a good thing, Tom, because, again, Planned Parenthood is subsidized with millions of dollars from taxpayer money. Now, for an institution like Planned Parenthood that gets funding all the time from private donors, why do we need to subsidize it? And more so, Tom, in a state like New Jersey where it's been codified into state law, where a woman can terminate a pregnancy right up until the moment of birth, or where women, again, because, it's such a brunch culture, and, of course, going out for Sunday Fun Day, right, to watch the NFL on Thursdays and then go out with the girls Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday for NFL Sunday Fun Day. Yes, ladies who can drink themselves into a drunken stupor and I'm sure wake up multiple times on Monday mornings next to the wrong guy. Well, guess what? You can go to a Walgreens, CVS, or Duane Reade and look behind the counter, sort of point it, very discreetly to the employee at the front desk and ask for a Plan B. I know this firsthand because I've had to buy multiple Plan Bs over the years. Yes, they cost $40-something plus tax, but hey, it's a means to an end. So with all of these options, why are you and so many women in New Jersey still bitching and moaning about abortion? There's nothing restricted upon you. You want to terminate your pregnancy up until birth? You can do that in New Jersey, tragically and sadly, okay? If you have pretty loose morals and you kind of get around, well, okay, guess what? You have the option of having a Plan B after another drunken weekend with the girls and brunching and everything else. So what exactly is being limited when it comes to abortion? I don't get that. It really boggles my mind where people like Tom Moran, white liberals like him, tend to speak out so staunchly against abortion restrictions. There's no abortion restriction in New Jersey. All the Dobbs decision did in 2022 was relegate the decision down to the states. Tom, you don't live in Tennessee, you don't live in Texas, and you don't live in Kentucky. If it outrages you so much about what's going on there, please move there. I'll even offer to drive you to the airport to take your sorry ass out of New Jersey. But trust me, folks, he won't. He has it too comfortably here. So again, let me go on with more of the editorial here. So again, of course, he ends it with a very sort of nonsensical persona non grata type of ending, right? So of course, he writes, so yes, this is a reluctant endorsement, an acknowledgement that Murphy is the best candidate on the ballot, nothing more. He has little agenda for a second term beyond keeping what he considers to be the good work, which he hasn't. We still have the highest property taxes in the country. People are moving out of New Jersey because it's way too expensive. Okay, we continue to coddle illegals. Now he's asking for money from the federal government because, hey, you want to all be about being a sanctuary state, but if you are about it, be about it. Don't be running to the federal government. Oh my God, we need money. Well, if you weren't giving money away to gay people every day with all of these programs you have here during Pride Month and everything else, or coddling illegals, right? Or making sure that Planned Parenthood gives money away, that Trenton gives money away to Planned Parenthood, well, maybe there would be more of a surplus in New Jersey. But again, folks, at some point, the chickens come home to roost financially and economically. So now Phil Murphy running to the federal government for money because now he doesn't know what to do with the influx of migrants. Well, you know what? Maybe not declare yourself a sanctuary state and you'd avoid that problem altogether. So, of course, Moran finishes by saying, still he's not Chiarelli. He has scored some big policy wins, and he's by far the best bet to steer us through the pandemic safely, which we all know isn't true. He killed thousands of small businesses. He killed thousands of veterans and seniors, and he's never been held accountable for it. In this race, that's more than enough to be the best choice. So again, folks, what Tom Moran has done between 2017 to the present was basically endorse and enable Phil Murphy. So now let's cut to 2024 to where now all of a sudden Tom Moran is an issue with the Queen, the First Lady of New Jersey, Tammy Murphy, saying in a most recent editorial, Tammy Murphy is getting desperate. Tammy Murray wants us to believe that the concerns about nepotism and her paltry qualifications to serve in the U.S. Senate are driven by sexism. Wow. Gee, Tom, you just figured that out right now? That it's BS? But again, what you've done is you've coddled the Murphys since the summer of 2017. For you now to be sanctimonious and have this sort of, oh my God, fake outrage that Tammy Murphy isn't qualified for the U.S. Senate. We all knew that. We all knew that Phil Murphy wasn't qualified to be governor, yet you endorsed him not once, but you endorsed him twice. Because again, you just can't allow yourself to be removed from the bias you have against conservatives, against Republicans. And it's funny, folks, because for a state like New Jersey, that's been under Democrat control in the legislature for over 20 years, okay? When we've had state Senate presidents like Steve Sweeney and now Nick Scutari, where we've had assembly speakers like Vinnie Prieto and now Craig Coughlin. The leadership in those positions is what's making New Jersey unaffordable. We have the highest property taxes in the country. We have a gas tax that continues to suffocate New Jerseyans. We have a budget that's getting fatter than the latest Victoria's Secret models or Lizzo, after our latest snack. But do you think that matters to people like Phil Murphy and the far left? Of course not. And do you think that matters to Tom Moran? Definitely not. But this is a guy who's enabled far left policies for years. And now he's surprised that by enabling people like Phil Murphy, that he's not going to take the opportunity to try to elevate his wife to a seat in the United States Senate. Folks, don't buy Tom Moran's nonsense. There's a reason why NJ.com and the Star Ledger continues to beg you every single day via email, because I get them. Okay, I got the receipts to begging you to pay $1 for their exclusive content because local journalism matters and their brand of journalism is representing you. No, it's not, folks. It's not representing anything that any commonsensical, rational person stands for in New Jersey. So next time you get something from NJ.com, send it to spam or unsubscribe. And next time you see a column from Tom Moran, take it for what it's worth. Print it up, wipe your ass with it, because that's all it's good for, because it's not good for anything else. Folks, Tom Moran and his sanctimony and his fake outrage isn't fooling anybody. He tries to fool us, but we're onto his game. Not just myself, but outstanding journalists like David Wildstein, the editor of the New Jersey Globe, and others know the game that Tom Moran's been playing. The problem is he still isn't very good at it, and we're all seeing through the nonsense. I hope at some point Tom does too. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. Now some stories, and a personal one that caught my attention, and a shout out to the New Jersey Monitor and Sophie Nieto Munoz, the smoke show there. I mean, folks, if you ever see her online, trust me, she's really nice to look at. So whenever she's on camera, do take advantage and appreciate the opportunity. But a great story here as we talk about a new state public defender who's aiming to bring modern approaches to indigent defenses. Now, Jennifer Saletti plans to restructure the office, which handles approximately 55,000 cases as most recently as 2023. So, for example, again, looking at people that have been in the system for quite some time, there's a story here. Lawrence Sabir Bell has 3 decades of experience with public defenders in New Jersey, enough to instill an entrenched cynicism about their work. So, again, arrested for a 1990 Camden murder, he's long maintained that he didn't commit and has maintained his innocence. He said public defenders filed briefs in his case without consulting him. He's met public defenders for the first time mere minutes before hearings where his fate hangs in the balance. And he's heard similar stories from other men in prison who regard their legal representation as a part of the system that has failed them. That's why Bell, who's 48 now, was ecstatic when New Jersey lawmakers last month approved Jennifer Saletti to become New Jersey's next state public defender. She will start the job coming up on February the 1st. Now, she does succeed Joseph Krikora, a guy who I had the opportunity to work with many moons ago when I was a criminal investigator for the Office of the Public Defender in Essex County. Now, again, Bell first met Saletti, a 17-year veteran of the Public Defender's Office, in 2018, when she took on his case as part of a broader push to reevaluate excessive punishment for juvenile offenders. She visited him unannounced at East Jersey State Prison and asked him about himself, repeatedly steering the conversation back to him anytime he strayed to his case. Quote, it was the first time since my incarceration, arguably the first time in my life, where someone made an inquiry about me, the individual, and not me, the crime. It was the first time that I felt like I was more than a docket number, Bell said. Jen had a genuine interest in me as a person. There was just something about her and her disposition that emoted goodness. Well, folks, I can tell you that many moons ago when I had the privilege of working with Jennifer at the Office of the Public Defender in Essex County, she's a great, great attorney. Now, we might disagree on a lot of policy prescriptions and maybe a lot politically, but there's no denying that Jennifer Saletti was an outstanding choice to become the state's next public defender. Now, I look forward to interviewing her on my other show, Real Talk, via Jersey First TV later this spring, since she's taking office on February the 1st. But I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, she is quite the public servant, someone who has worked diligently to stand up for people that have not received adequate representation. You know, in a time when we talk about the Bill of Rights and due process and making sure that we all have the right to a jury of our peers, that we have a right to a speedy trial, that we have a right against self-incrimination, that we have a right to counsel. Folks, those are rights that we cherish since they were instilled into the Bill of Rights hundreds of years ago by the Founding Fathers. And Jennifer Saletti is yet another public servant doing her due diligence to help offenders like Mr. Bell. Now, again, whether or not he's innocent or not, I don't know, folks. I haven't read the case file. I haven't read what the motions are, okay? A lot of people that are incarcerated for almost the rest of their lives will claim that they didn't commit any murders. We'll see. Again, I don't want to sort of paint with a broad brush, and Mr. Bell's case might be a unique one. But give it up for Ms. Saletti, again, the state's new public defender, and also an attorney who's looking to care for people, not just, as Mr. Bell said, not just that he's a docket number, but that he's an actual person with feelings, lifelong issues, and perhaps some consequences for what happened many moons ago. We'll see what the workload looks like, but again, I have the privilege of working at the Office of the Public Defender in Essex County. I didn't really care for a lot of the administrators there. There were a lot of bad administrators. Some hopefully that have retired because they were pretty useless during the time that I worked there. But I will say the investigators, the attorneys, and the other employees, they're all dedicated to making sure people get adequate representation. Really, that's at the core of the Office of the Public Defender. And now to Jersey City, and a shout out to Ron Zettlinger with the Jersey Journal for his tragic reporting on this story. Folks, we keep discussing it on this program. I'm really one of the few journalists in New Jersey that keeps talking about sort of like the rise of criminality and sort of like the apathy that exists, again, not just by Trenton, but really by the far left and progressives and activists that are all about coddling criminals instead of coddling and aiding citizens. And unfortunately, an 88-year-old worker was slashed in an attempted robbery in Jersey City. Now, this elderly employee at a Jersey store was slashed in the face during a daytime robbery. Now, the incident occurred in broad daylight at 1:24 p.m. last week at a discount store located at 783 Bergen Avenue, directly across the street from Hudson Catholic High School. Now, a man entered the store and brandished a knife, demanding the 88-year-old employee give him the money from the register. Jersey City spokeswoman Kimberly Wallace Scaloni said in a statement this past week. The assailant then slashed the victim's face and fled with no proceeds. The victim was transported to the local hospital with a small laceration to the left side of his face. The investigation is ongoing. Folks, it's tragic, and what measures could have been in place to help this elderly 88-year-old worker remains to be seen. But again, folks, even if this individual's caught, who's to say that he'll serve any significant time? What are we doing in New Jersey, right? Bail reform, we see it across the river in New York City. Countless criminals get arrested and they're out on the street before you know it. Folks, it's a time to demand for stricter bail reform, not just in Trenton, but in Albany, in states all around the country, where, again, the far left seems to sort of permeate within state legislatures. I get it, folks, that the left always likes to acquiesce to criminality and loves to sort of coddle career criminals. We saw it during the summer of 2020 when we saw marches not just throughout New Jersey, but all across the country for a career criminal like George Floyd. And of course, when we see individuals like this being targeted in broad daylight, kind of makes you wonder, listen, police can't be everywhere. And there's a reason why New Jersey residents are just sort of running to their local police departments to apply for a gun permit. To practice their Second Amendment rights, the right to bear arms, to protect themselves, to protect their person, their property, and their families. Listen, again, folks, police can't be everywhere. And I get that. And I am as staunch a supporter of law enforcement as there is. I'm not like some of these, slapnut activists and progressives in Hudson County or in New Jersey. We all know who they were, folks. Some were even council members. They talked about defunding the police and, having this sort of cynical view of law enforcement. Folks, I get it. There are bad apples in every profession. Cops, doctors, nurses, postal workers, deli people at your local Stop and Shop, Target, or Walmart. Folks, you name it. There are bad apples in every profession. I call out bad apples in journalism every week, so trust me, I know how to identify bad apples. Understand something, folks, that it's this sort of acquiescence to criminality. It's not being harsher with sentencing and being harsher on criminals and criminality. That's the problem running rampant in New Jersey. No, I don't want to blame sort of the mayor in Jersey City or the city council for this. I mean, this could have happened anywhere. But again, folks, I blame Trenton for not having, again, sort of the set or the male reproductive organs, literally, or probably more figuratively, to be harsher on crime, to be more punitive on crime. Again, we keep coddling criminals. They're just going to run and do whatever they want. We're seeing this in broad daylight. We're seeing robberies, not just in Jersey City, but we're seeing robberies and thefts and burglaries happening in municipalities all across the state of New Jersey. But again, folks, as long as we're focusing on pronouns and not property taxes, as long as we're focusing on woke nonsense and making sure that kids, understand that there are, 30 genders at the age of 5 instead of worrying about public safety or ensuring that the quality of life can be preserved in our municipalities all across the state. Well, again, folks, that's the priority list in Trenton. That's the priority list for a lot of our municipalities. By, again, not being harsher on crime, by being so lackadaisical and soft on crime. Now, again, I don't claim to have all the answers, but what I can tell you is that my counterparts in the liberal media don't have them either. But if anyone's closer to giving you a policy prescription that makes sense, that preserves safety, that's promoting the quality of life, folks, you can look no further than yours truly. I'm all about that discussion. I'm all about that pursuit of information. I'm all about trying to encourage legislators at the local level and at the state level to be harsher on crime. Trust me, I contact legislators all the time. And obviously we're seeing it's falling on deaf ears, just like thousands of other New Jerseyans who contact legislators on a daily basis. So again, my heart goes out to this 88-year-old employee who hopefully recovers and doesn't lose any substantial wages from being out of work. But folks, again, it's a reminder to arm yourself, to protect yourself at all times, whether it's filing for a gun permit, buying a taser, buying any sort of weapon, again, within New Jersey, criminal code that allows you to protect yourself. Because guess what? Nobody else will. And the far left in New Jersey have zero interest in doing that. They claim they do, but not really. Well, their heart might be in the right place, but as usual, when it comes to policies, their heads up their asses. And look no further than something like this, where obviously this incident could have been avoided. And that's our show for this week. Once again, to check out all of the outstanding programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group, please check out their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv. Don't forget to like them on Facebook. Of course, follow them on Instagram and Twitter. And of course, for all you YouTube subscribers, click that subscribe button and you'll be notified of all the outstanding content brought to you by the Hudson Media Group every single week, whether it's this show, Talking Politics, with Fernando Uribe, the Hudson County View Live with John Highness, of course, the City Show, hosted by our incredible CEO, Pat O'Melia, and of course, all the other wonderful programming you've come to rely on when it comes to the Hudson Media Group. Don't forget to like Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe on Facebook. Of course, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, Top 50 Latino, as voted on by the Latino Spirit Online magazine, along with the United States Latino Affairs Initiative. And certainly, I take pride in being the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media because my level of honesty is necessary in this era of deception. Yes, it's me, folks, Fernando Uribe, saying so long. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay warm. Again, be careful out there. Look after your elderly neighbors. Please, drive safely. Please party responsibly. And always remember, if you can't be good, be bad, baby. We'll see you next time here on Talking Politics via the Hudson Media Group. And thanks for stopping by.